First of all, thank you for the opportunity to support today's very important and informative webinar, and to also share something more information about the World Cup Alliance and how you as a healthcare professional can get involved as well and join our mission. Next slide, please. And the reason why Tanya Knott, who you met earlier today, a CUP patient advocate in Ireland, and myself, a CUP patient advocate in the Netherlands, started the World Cup Alliance is a simple but emotional and sad one as well, as we personally experienced what it's like to support young patients with CUP in their journey of sickness, uncertainty, and often deteriorating health. And we felt there's so much more behind these stories, because the stories, or the statistics, I mean, the statistics are quite grim, but the stories are often lengthy ones, lengthy diagnostic trajectories, trying to find the primary tumor. And we felt we need to share these stories, and together as advocates, we can do more. Next slide, please. And we realized that even though circumstances and care availability across countries can differ, as we also saw earlier today with the differences across countries, but we felt when it comes to unmet need and gaps and patient experiences, there's actually a lot more similarity. And one of the most important effects of a CUP diagnosis is the uncertainty, and sometimes it's even never solvable. And we felt like this is an example of a shared experience. And therefore, as the WCA, we felt it would be important to really map out that patient journey. Next slide, please. And that's what we set out to do. So the WCA consists of two patient organizations, and in the Netherlands, we set out a patient journey questionnaire where we would take into account both the view of patients and caregivers, as well as that of healthcare professionals. And on this slide, you can see the overview of the patient journey from the patient perspective, and we will dive in a bit more into that. And after that, I will tell a bit more about the World Cup Alliance and our goals and what are our next steps and how you can get involved as well. Next slide, please. And as you can see here on the slide, uncertainty, I already mentioned it, it's already prior to a diagnosis, something that is really sort of sticking with patients. And even, you know, they don't have a diagnosis yet, but they don't know what else they have. And then actually, when it comes to sort of, you know, helping this uncertainty, some of the wishes for patients and also the hiatus that are mentioned, I think, as referral to psychological support or maybe support from a case manager. And I think as a healthcare professional, you may think, oh, this will come later already, but already these patients, before they enter the hospital, as you can see on the next slide, they already are dealing with that uncertainty, because about half of the CUP patients in different countries, they present at the general practitioner and in the first place. And because they come in with a variety of symptoms, it's often not easy to sort of identify this group of patients as a group that has similarities and that you know what to do with it, refer them right away. And therefore referrals can take long. And about half or a little bit over half of the patients, they actually present as acute emergencies in hospitals already. And I think the message here is that patients feel like they're not really seen as a recognizable group. And also themselves, they wait often too long with going to the GP or the hospital because they don't have an alarm bell that's for them, oh, this must be CUP, I need to go to the doctor, because they don't know what they have. Next slide, please. And once they first end up in a hospital, we see, because of the variety of symptoms that they come in with, there's also a variety of tests that are taking place. So there's not really one single pathway, even though today we're talking about like what would be the ideal pathway. We're seeing that these patients have a different pathway often. Some of them, there's a lack of information because of the unique situation and symptoms. Sometimes they have very many care professionals that are trying to help them, but it's often not really explained in clear language to the patient what is being done. And once they end up at a center of expertise or a CUP clinic, the main goal there is often to really end that lengthy diagnostic trajectory. And it really differs per hospital, per country, the time that it really takes from going to your first hospital to going to the center of expertise. Next slide, please. And we see that during this time period, which can be lengthy, as mentioned again, that patients experience a variety of emotions, such as disappointment, panic, anxiety, sometimes also relief, because sometimes the CUP diagnosis actually comes as a relief because there's finally a label that it can be placed upon them. And when we sort of speak with patients, what would you wish for, what would help you, it would really be, again, like information sharing, a more personal approach, even clear explanations, even if the message is a difficult one, patients really prefer to actually know what is happening to them. And even if the healthcare professional does not know what a prognosis is, even that can also be helpful when that is, for example, mentioned. And next slide. And then, yeah, this again here, like once they have the diagnosis, the uncertainty remains if they remain a CUP patient. But it's really important to really stress on that communication, because it also has shown in studies that the lack of information itself is already a burden to the quality of life that patients can actually maintain, and actually it worsens the uncertainty they have. Next slide, please. And recently we're seeing that there are sort of two trajectories with CUP patients, which is actually a good thing, because we still have the large group of patients that remains in palliative treatment. And I think the thing that we're seeing there is that in some of these cases, patients and caregivers, they experience a little too late involvement of the GP. So I think it's really important to circle back to the GP and can get them involved on the case again. And also for patients that are grieving after having lost their beloved family member, they're really missing the aftercare part. And I think that also differs per country. It's not always part of a pathway, but there's clearly a need, because we see patients that are grieving that are still not really aware of what the diagnosis was, and they're then blaming themselves, which is actually a sort of a more severe case of grief. So I do think as societies, it's important that when we speak about CUP, we also think about that. But luckily, we are seeing a growing number of patients in a group that has access to more molecularly guided therapies because of the access to molecular profiling. But yet again, there the uncertainty remains, because patients that are on treatment and are doing physically well, they believe they get all the support from their clinicians. But they often come back to patient organizations like ourselves with questions about how to deal with the uncertainty. What should we do? With questions, how can we access other patients? Because often they're relatively unique patients, so there's lots of sort of room for improvement in providing patients contact with each other so that they can actually share their uncertainty. Next slide, please. But the good thing is, when we did this patient questionnaire and caregiver questionnaire, we also asked this to healthcare professionals. And the good thing was that we actually found similar sort of feelings, emotions, also wishes and gaps in the care system. So this really is helpful for us to sort of start advocating for some of the improvements, because both patients, caregivers, and healthcare professionals are recognizing the same things. Next slide, please. And that brings us really to sort of a summary slide, like what are some of the key unmet needs and what are the things that we should still work on. So we need to work on reducing the uncertainty. We need to try to shorten the referral times. We need to sort of increase support. Maybe a nurse specialist can help there. But also we need to do more research into treatments. And next slide, please. And that is actually how we started the World Cup Alliance, because we felt as advocates, you know, now that we know this, what can we do and how can we actually do it together? And we felt as advocates, we also need to proactively reach out to the community of medical specialists, researchers. And that's why we set up the World Cup Alliance to overcome the unmet needs of CUP patients. And next slide, please. Yeah, here it's also summarized in our mission. So we are an alliance of advocates, but we're really very much open for healthcare professionals and researchers, as well as industry, everyone sort of who is involved in the CUP field, who would like to sort of solve the mystery of CUP to join us, so that we can actually share information, co-collaborate on research, and also really support patients in different countries. Because as I said in the beginning, there are differences across countries, but the emotions and the experience of CUP patients are quite similar in a way that they are all suffering from that uncertainty, that lengthy patient journey. And then next slide, please. We're almost at the end. So here on the slide, you can see our current committee of experts from different countries and different professions. But we're very much open for more medical specialists to join us. Next slide, please. And here you can once again see a bit of our objectives. But I think before I wrap up, I would like to go to the next slide. Yeah, the next slide. So a bit more on what are we currently doing. So one of the key things that we're currently sort of advocating for is a dedicated track within ESMO or ASCO. And I think Linda Malishkin earlier today already mentioned that ASCO, there were only 3 presentations on CUP. We feel like CUP should be getting a bit more effort at these big events. So that's why we wrote to ESMO to ask for a dedicated cup track. And if that is not feasible, at least to sort of showcase cup as one of the key diagnoses within an agnostic track. And we're trying to do the same at ASCO. And for that, it's really important to get support from the healthcare professional community, because if we advocate with all your support, it comes in as a stronger message. And at the moment, we're working on a cup position paper on the unmet needs, together with our current committee of advisors. And this patient journey questionnaire that we set out in the Netherlands to begin with, we're now also launching it in different countries. So if you have any patients or caregivers that you would like to fill in this questionnaire, it's all anonymous, and we can share that with you as well. And at the same time, we're working on showcasing more patient experiences from different countries, and we're advocating for better collaboration on CUP data registries, molecular tumor boards, and access to molecular profiling. And I think that is my next slide. My next slide is the final slide. Yes, last year at ESMO, we launched the World Cup Alliance, and this year at ESMO, we will have a meeting room there as well. So if you are present at ESMO, please come to visit us, as we are open for your ideas and to collaborate further. And